Okay, here we go. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Terra Prime Live Saber Academy. This is our last class for June. And this June, we've been going with this theme of the online teaching and getting out there and letting people get involved as we are all locked down in our various spaces. So we've been doing the Facebook Live shows. We've been doing these shows and classes throughout this time. As we go into July, things are going to kind of change a little bit. We'll still be doing lots of live stuff. We're still going to be posting lots of conversations and stuff like that. We're going to get back into the tutorials. We're going to be revamping, putting out new videos for all the 4 pillars so that everybody's going to have, nice new, hopefully clearer and more concise reference material. And we will be still setting up that website and app so that people can follow along at home and be as active as they want. So that is the news for today. Today, what we are going to be doing to finish up our series here is the velocities. Now, the velocities are the last segment of each of our formula, right? You have your formula, your accelerations, your Dulon, your velocities. Your velocities are your 2-person exercises. 2-person exercises are very important in the martial arts, especially in weapons arts, because they give you the tactile sense that you will have, or approximate it, that you will have against another opponent. This can be shocking to people who have never tried it before. We all like to swing our sabers around and we all imagine what it's like to hit something. But unless you've hit something, you don't realize what it feels like. It's basically Newtonian physics, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So when you hit, that shock, if it doesn't go into the target, it goes into you. Hence the need for technique and all that. So anyway, now up to this point, all of our segments have been suitable for 1 person. But now your 2-person stuff gets a little trickier, especially now. We've got social distancing, we can't be together. And a lot of people are practicing by themselves at home. When you want to apply for apprenticeship, you will have to perform one of these velocities called 3 of each, which we'll get into in a moment. So you have to practice it by yourself, and you're going to have to do that. Now, I can demonstrate it here by myself, and I'll show you. There are some differences that are going here. When you do a 2-person exercise by yourself, it can take on the form of a Dulon, right? But there are different rules that are going to be applied to either Dulon or to velocity work. Okay, so these are the things. Now, when people complain about Dulon, a lot of times they say, you can't spin, don't turn your back on your opponent, don't do this, don't do that. The problem with those complaints is that when you're talking about Dulon, you don't have a partner, so you don't know where their opponent is. You don't know if they're turning their back, right? So the point of Dulon is not to replicate a fight, right? The point of Dulon is to replicate specific physical stresses within your body to improve flexibility, motion, movement, cardiovascular endurance, all of these things, right? When we move into velocities, the core idea is that it's to be done with another person. Therefore, certain other rules are going to come into play, right? Economy of motion, unity of motion, all of these things, and specific targeting. These are all very, very important. Now, when you're doing it by yourself, there will be certain things that you will tend to do. You will tend not to think about things, or you will tend to overthink things. So what we'll do here is we'll kind of outline the important things that we want to kind of focus on. One moment here while Okay, so now in Shicho, we have 3 velocities. We have first one, which is the nucleus. And that's our first and our most important one. Next one is the Kessel Run. And the next one is 3 of each. The way that we're going to be doing things, I'll put out a video about this too as we're bringing people in, right? Is we will be choosing our apprentices from students. So students will come in. So even if you're just you're coming in as a student right now and you're going to be showing your Dulan, and that's what you want to be concentrating on. This stuff you want to do, especially if you want to get into instruction, because you're going to need this if you want to instruct other people. Okay, so let's talk about the nucleus. The nucleus is called such because we are creating our center. We are going around a nucleus, okay? This nucleus is something that we can pass through and go through. Now, the reason that we do this in Shicho is we want to take our awareness and take it outside of our body, and we want to put it sort of in front of us, right? We have a weapon. This is not part of our body. There's a lot of a lip service that said you make this part of your body. Okay, what does that actually mean? It just means being able to use and manipulate this as freely as you would a limb, right? Not that you're going to have the exact same experience with a weapon that you will with your hand or limb, okay? So anyway, so that's the nucleus. The nucleus is the center. When we do it together, you will have 2 people facing each other, okay? At each turn, they're going to go 90 degrees, okay? Now, there is a reason for all of this that comes from having a flat, okay? So that stuff we'll just kind of, we're just going to kind of gloss over. But what will happen is we're just going to decide. One person is going to attack, the other person is going to defend. And that's going to be defined essentially by the 4th movement, okay? So I will start here. Now, the nucleus goes around in a circle and it goes around in quadrants. Let me get this so you can see approximately what's going on here. Okay, so I'll start off like here. When we start off, we're going to start off in our attack stance in middle guard, right? We start with the first strike, is up to the head. We're then going to turn it down to the bottom. Okay. Okay, so again, from here, 1, 2, 3. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this foot here, and I'm going to step across. I'm going to bring this up into a drop here. Okay, this is the defense side. Okay, so if I'm defending, I'm going to then receive a blow. Which blow? This one. Boom. Okay, the movements are exactly the same for each person, but who's doing what when, that's how the whole thing fits together. Now I've gone down here, right? Boom. There, then I bring up here, then I step back to there. So the whole thing looks essentially like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's defending. They do an overhead strike to me. Now if I do an attacking, I'm doing the first strike. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there. Okay? So I do the first strike as I come around here. 1, they come in with their strike, and then I step back to here. 90 degrees from the way we started. Right? And then we do it again. Boom, boom. Defend. Attack. Defend. 1, 2, 3. Attack. Defend. Ready. 1, 2, 3. Defend. Attack. Defend. Okay? So if you attack, the last thing you do will be bringing your saber down into middle guard. If you defend, the last thing you'll be doing is bringing it up into middle guard, if that makes sense. And the reason is because of the dynamic of that parry. If I come through and strike first, this strike's coming over here, I parry it, and now I come back down to here. Right? If I do it the other way, where I'm here, boom, I received this blow, then I strike here. Now when I step back, I pull that back. Okay? Fairly simple. Very, very high percentage techniques. Now, is this an actual combination to use in free play? Not so much. You'll use elements of it. The whole sequence would be very difficult to find. But the overhead strikes, these happen all the time. Going up to down, going around, all of that stuff. Each of these elements is done very, very much. Are they necessarily done together in this sequence? Not often, but regardless, doing these types of things will help you. Now, when you're with another person, you can start to feel a little bit of the pressure that we always talk about in martial arts when we say we want to pressure test things, right? That pressure that you start to feel, and this is why two-person exercises are very important before you get into sparring, right? Though that pressure that you feel is the inability of the sudden awareness of your inability to do anything you want. All of a sudden, your choices are now being dictated by what the other person is doing, right? And if going from solo work to partner work helps you with that transition. If you go right from solo work into fighting and to sparring, it can be done, but there'll be a bigger learning curve, right? You'll have to take a few more licks as you go through it. Either way, that's kind of what it is, okay? So there's your nucleus. Now, if I go through it here, and I'll just go through it smooth, slow but smooth, and always remember, when you're doing this by yourself, when you're doing this with a partner, do not hit hard. You want to very lightly touch and move on to the next movement, all right? So we go here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Now, elements that you're using from the forms, from the Dulan, all of that should start to become very, very apparent. And when you start doing these exercises, you start to realize how these really work, okay? In Dulan, when we're doing honor sash, it looks like this, right? Very beautiful, okay? Clear. When we do it in real life, it's just like that. It's just lifting up and falling down, okay? The number one most intuitive thing to do with a sword. Lift it up, bring it down. Okay. All right. Do we have any questions specifically on the nucleus? Remember, most of you are muted. We good? All right, we're good. Let's move on. Kessel run. Kessel run is a little bit different. It's forward and backward. Now, this is going to deal with, of course, advanced retreat, but also staying viable with your weapon while advancing your retreat. Okay? It's easy to kind of, you know, do this kind of stuff, but to move forward in a deliberate fashion while throwing honest and effective attacks at your opponent is a much different thing. Okay, so the Kessel run is that you start off in a kind of start, right? Now, you can go back, look at the video if you want that piece. I'll go through a couple of the elements of the beginning because there are certain things, but it's a little complicated and a little hard to demonstrate necessarily by yourself. But when you start out, you're going to start out face to face with your partner, right? And we come in like this. A covering strike happens to this, and then we kind of go in like that. Now, this is an important bit here, okay? So that when you start off in the Kessel run, we'll either kind of like poke forward, do something. There's a little dance. Let me see if I can't screen share it, just to give you a taste of kind of what it looks like here. Actually, Ben, if you could, would you mind maybe looking up that on YouTube and see and then maybe posting it in the
what exactly do you need?
The Kessel run for the just the
instructional
video
for it?
Yeah, for the intro,
yep.
Which is a little bit complicated.
Yep.
Just so people can see it done with another person.
Okay.
I'll say some stuff here, and it might not make a whole lot of sense, right? But while he's doing that, I'll just kind of go over it here. So basically, you're kind of standing face to face with somebody, and you're dealing with an attack that's coming right for you. When this comes in here like this, we have that covering strike there, which is going to come up and start that. The point of that whole beginning is that we basically end up in our tap the temples position. High guard up here like this, and then we're parrying and striking alternately at our opponent's temples. Okay? So, when you come up, this is like Sun Jian. Okay? It's not coming up like this, it's rolling it over. Boom. Boom. You see? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in like this, and then I'm rolling it around. When somebody hits my blade, right, I go here, I roll it, right? And as I'm rolling it, I'm either stepping forward or I'm stepping back. Okay? All right. So, we'll go through that thing here. They do the thing, blah, blah, blah. We go back and forth. Now, I start off here. 1, 2, 3. Okay? I do 3 of those. From here, I then go into Sarlacc Sleep. 1, 2, 3. And I'm coming up like this, and then I'm going to hit. Boom. And I hit over the head. Okay? That's my piece. Go through it again here. We get this. We do the intro. Boom. You can start on either side, but it's 3 of each. In this, we're not at 3 of each, but but it's three repetitions. 1, 2, 3. Right? 1, 2, 3. Oh, went off here. Okay. I'll do the tap the temples here first. So I can either go, if it's going this way, boom, like that. If they hit it the other way, you go the other way. Simple as that. When you get good at the exercise, it becomes a little variable. We'll get into that in a moment. So tap the temples. 1, 2, 3. So I sweep. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Okay. And obviously we come up like that. Okay. All right. If you're doing ASL, this is a very good velocity to practice arming. Okay. Now, the defender. I strike his saber that way. Boom. I come up here. I know it's coming around. Right? Boom. Boom. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Right? So if I go here like this, boom, his saber is going to go around that way and come to this side. You see? Boom. So I know it's coming. So what I have to do is I step back. You see? Parry there. Parry. Parry. This is what we mean by a difference between a parry and a strike is intent. The technique may look identical. Okay, so now we've done 3. Let's say it. 1, 2, 3. He comes in with a Sarlacc sweep. I'm going to do the same thing, right? But I'm going to meet it down here. You see? Boom, to prevent him from getting his touch. Then, boom, step forward. Then, boom, he steps forward. I parry overhead. Right? My blade is going this way. 1, 2, 3. You see? So I've reversed it. All right? Again. Here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Okay? So that's how the exercise kind of fits together. If you're doing it by yourself, here is what you've got. One direction, going forward, you're going to be attacking. And then you're going to be defending on the other way. So, from here, boom, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay? So you're going to kind of imagine, now you imagine an opponent. Now you're thinking of another person there. Here's where you don't want to turn your back. Here's where you don't want to let your weapon float out to the side. Now those things start to become important because now we have an opponent in front of us. Okay? We must always distinguish this. Is there an opponent in front of us or not? If there is, That's going to dictate the kind of stuff, some kind of things, right? Shicho, remember, is also about large scale battle, okay? So the duel doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of importance with these techniques. These techniques are to make sure that each soldier in the line, 40,000 of them, knows exactly what to do. They may be doing like one little thing here, there, whatever, but it all comes together. So anyway, so that is the Kessel Run. How are we on that guy? We good? All right, no questions. We shall continue. Okay, so now, yes, in the comments here, there is some Kessel Run videos. I will post those in the comments after the fact so people can check them out as well. But for those people, for you here, go check out those. Those will give you a better example of what the intro is going to look like. And that's why it's confusing if one person is doing it, because you're not necessarily sure what's happening. Check that out, and then that'll be fine. Okay, so here we are with 3 of each. 3 of each is our kind of synthesis velocity. This is going to start you on your road to combination, to thinking within action. So like while you're sparring, while you're fighting, while you're demonstrating, you can still remain active mentally. You don't have to take a break and do something else while this is going on. Right. 3 of each is basically, we're going to take 3 of each type of technique or strike or whatever that we're using with it, and we're going to pair it. Okay. So when you're doing it with people, 2 people, 1 person basically dictates the next 3 strikes, and then you switch. Okay. Now, here are the different components to this. And this is how we look at all of martial arts. So this is why this is important, even if you're not planning on testing for this as of yet, okay? Because we have a limited number of things that we're going to be doing, but we're going to try to combine them into an infinitely diverse type of exercise. Now, when you start at the beginning, it is very easy to get robotic, to get repetitive. You can also get repetitive without even knowing it, thinking that you're being very clever and coming up with a really awesome little sequence. When you record yourself and watch it, you'll notice that you do it 16 times in a row and you didn't even realize it. So keep these things in mind. 3 of each is going to require a little bit of imagination and a little bit of, and a whole lot of knowledge and a whole lot of practice. So I will perform it by myself here. Just remember that whatever I'm doing, my partner is going to be doing the same thing. Okay? So let's start with the first type of idea, striking. Okay? Now, since I'm going with one opponent, I know where they are. So that's where I'm going to be doing. So when I do this parry here, I'm not necessarily going to take it behind me. Right? Okay? Here, I'm going to keep it up in front of me because I know my opponent's there. Now people will say, but wait, then that's not this technique. Okay. I don't know what importance that has, but the fact of the matter is you'll just use this portion of it. Okay? If you're wondering why you should practice all of this, put a brace on and don't let your arm move other than this, and you'll figure out why we do all of this. right? Not everything is the poison ball, right? Some things are just push-ups. So now we have this. Strike here, strike there. You see? Okay? What will happen is it's very much like Rothtar's wheel. We're going to have 3 different stepping levels, okay? So this is our first strike. Honor set. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? Now this consists of both the parry and the strike. So I go 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now, if I do shins to the arms, right? 1, 2, 3. My opponent, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And then 1, 2, 3. Down low. See? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Okay? So we keep it there. Yes, lots of other things that you can do. Don't try to beat the exercise. The drill here is we're going to use these 3 things mostly. Well, we can probably use this. Actually, you know, let's take this one out, right? Because this one's very low percentage and you don't do this much, right? And we'll put this one in, okay? Because that's usually what we do. So the 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 3 by 3. Now, footwork. We have standing still, basically shifting back and forth. We can move this foot here. We have moving in a circle, right? Okay. Hut slides, right? And then we have rotating around in a circle. Okay, that shift. That shift. Just use those 3. Okay? So what you can do is you start off stationary. Then you start moving your feet. Right? Okay. We'll keep it simple. If you want to do Sarlacs are also in there, right? For our purposes right here, we're going to keep it to these 3 so I can show you how it's. Right? So again, boom, boom, boom. Okay? Then I keep going. Right? Boom, boom, boom. Okay? So that's one way of moving around. Okay? Staying still, pivoting around that circle. Okay? Now, if we do 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay? Remember, you're only playing with 3 steps. 3 phase, full, and hut slide. Okay? So that when you go through it, be creative with these things. Right? Let me put it on the footwork here. I'll just go through a little bit here. Like I said, this can start to get into a free-formish type of exercise, right? Okay? So it's just an easy kind of moving around. Now, to get to that level of improvisation, you have to take very deliberate steps. Okay? You can't just immediately go to that. Try it out. Try each of these things out slowly by themselves, right? Try out your honor sash. 1, 2, right? Try going alternating sides. Boom, same side. Right? Here. Start moving. You see? I'm just doing honor sets. I did nothing else. Right? And yet, there's a lot there. So just go through each of these things, right? The 3 we did here, right? We did tap the temples, we did honor sash, and we did, I don't know what you call that top. Tap the ankles or whatever. But remember, you also have Sarlacc sweep, right? You have shims to each side. You have all of those types of things, right? You have Sun Gem side chop. Okay? So all of this stuff is fair game for you. All right. One moment. I'll check these things. I don't think we have anything, but okay. All right then. How are we doing with this?
There's a question on the Zoom chat there.
Oh, okay. It should use both clockwise and counterclockwise circular stepping. When you do it, you want to move as freely as you can, right? So you're going to do all of that kind of thing. When you start out, don't complicate it overly for yourself. You don't want to get robotic. You don't want to do the same thing over and over and over, right? So if I'm here and I'm doing stuff like this, right? I do want to be going in both directions. Do you want to practice this? I don't know. I never have, and it's never come up. So, right? If I'm coming through like this, boom, 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 right? That's one thing. I'm probably not going to do this. This is not something I would recommend doing, okay? Because when you're doing the circling and you're circling the other person, you're going here, boom, you're facing them, all right? Now you can turn around and go back the other way, boom, right? But if I keep going on this side, I'm here kind of the same side, and then this strike is what? I don't know, right? So while clockwise and counterclockwise are important in martial arts, and they're important here, because we are lopsided, because we have an armed side, there's a different dynamic on each side. So we have to keep that in mind. It's not simply, I have to do this on both sides, right? I have to know that doing this going this way and doing this going this way are going to have different mechanics and different things that I have to think about. And to do either of them correctly, I have to do the correct ones for what those are, right? So yes, you should go both ways. There we go. Let me unpin the video here and get to here.
A quick question for clarity's sake.
Mm-hmm.
The main parameters of this velocity then is that you have to do 3 repetitions of the same strike, and
Yeah.
then move on to a different set of 3 repetitions of the same strike, no less, no more, and then you start adding layers of complexity on top of that as you start mastering doing those 3 repetitions.
Well, you will always do the 3 repetitions.
Yes, but then you start adding complexity, as in adding high, medium, low, or adding stepping forward, stepping backward, or stepping around your opponent. Those would be the layers of complexity that you'd add after you get comfortable doing 3 of each, switching to a different strike, 3 of those, switching to a different strike.
Yeah, to an extent, but since you're doing 3 of the same technique, you can't do this. I can't come in like this and go boom, boom, boom. Right? I have to do 3. So it has to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Remember, we're not trying to hit each other yet.
Yes.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to build up sensitivity and reactiveness within. Also, this is a very, very important exercise for distancing. Okay, learning how to range your attacks, learning how far you can be toward a person and be in their range, how far you have to be away from them for them not to be able to hit you, and how close you have to be to them for you to hit them, right? All of these things become far more difficult now that we have a stick, because we do not have awareness into our stick. This is not part of our body, right? That's why a lot of times you'll see this in fencing, in kendo and stuff like that. You'll see fighters come together and start tapping their blades, or kind of, just kind of feeling out, touching the blade. They're basically just saying, okay, I'm trying to get, I'm right at the edge of your range, and I'm trying to get in, and testing here, right, to see how I can get in. So that kind of the reason you're doing just 3 of these at a time is to take the pressure off of your brain, as far, right? You don't have to worry about defending yourself. You don't have to worry about, worrying about where they're targeting or anything like that. You kind of know, you just have to know the appropriate response to what they're doing, right? Which, in this exercise, is generally exactly what they're doing, right? So that's another benefit the exercise gives you. It gives you that ability to recognize what the other person is doing so that you can formulate some plan of attack to deal with it. Okay, let's see. Justin, did you have a question? Yes.
Oh yeah, the one that I just typed out there. I was just asking if there's a difference between like improvisation and flow, because I know you just posted recently that video regarding flow, and I was just kind of confused as to what is improvisation and what is flow.
Okay, that's a good question. So a lot of times what you will hear from martial artists and from us, and we've said this a lot to people posting videos and stuff like that, is, don't make it so choppy, it has to flow, all of this kind of thing. And what I was talking about in that video was that we say this a whole lot, and yet we very rarely tell people how to achieve it. And so that's what that thing was. So when I say flow, what I mean is a kind of biomechanical connection and knitting together of technique. So let's take sheet show like I was before. Boom. Right. So that's as much as I can kind of get on camera or whatever. So doing it flowing, right, gives you one thing, okay? I wasn't going fast and I wasn't putting power in that, but I was flowing. And it has more of a intent, right? What happens a lot of times with beginners is your arms move and rest, you know, all that kind of thing, because you don't quite have everything knit together, right? What will happen, what I've started to see sort of happening, why I put that video out and made this distinction, is because I see a lot of people attempting flow and losing their cohesion, right? So flow should not end up looking like this, right? It still has to have the intent, right? It's the same thing with this exercise with 3 of each, if you're looking to flow, right? Now, flow is the connection between specific movements. Each of these movements has a flow in and of itself. Learn these first and then stack them together. By doing that, you will learn how they can flow into each other. But don't try to make them flow into each other before you understand those dynamics, okay? This is where improvisation comes in. Now, improvisation is basically an unrehearsed sequence where you're just basically making stuff up as you go along, but not really. It shouldn't be considered making things up, because you are reacting to what's happening around. If you watch improvisational comedy has to work off of another person. Nobody can do just an improvisational stand-up routine unless they have, like, watch Robin Williams, who's one of the most amazing improvisational comics out there. And like his old live shows, he would have his bits that he had rehearsed and then he had come up with, right? But then there'd be huge segments where he just goes through the audience, right? And takes thumbs up. He has his bits. He has his rehearsed material, right? He knows his rhythm, his timing, everything like that. So that when he moves out into chaos, into the audience where he doesn't know what's coming toward, right? He can still roll with it. It's the same thing with this. That's the difference between flow and improvisation. Flow is a movement. Improvisation is more of a mental faculty, okay? Both are kind of related to each other. Both will be there. If you can't flow, improvisation is going to be very difficult, right? If you can't improvise, then when you flow, it's going to be very difficult to make it look interesting, because you're going to do the same thing over and over and over again, right? So we want these things to kind of be together. Now, how I would recommend working with flow with this, because you're going to take some of the other movements here, right, is just looking at these segments, right? If we look at honor sash all the time. Let's look at Sun Jim side chop, right? So if we in the set, right? We come over, boom. There are 2 distinct movements there. There's the Sun Jim, and then there's the side chop, right? When we come up, the covering strike happens here, right? Now, what's confusing is because we turn, it looks like we're swiping it back, but we're not, okay? We're up like this, palms up, we turn this over and step in, okay? That's one cohesive piece. From here, whew, okay? So when you're learning this, just pick that piece out. I'm coming up. Settle. Think about what you're doing next. and come out. So that's not necessarily flowing. You're stopping, right? But that flow is still there because the movement within those pieces is smooth and is connected. When you're dealing with this, like if you're to do 3 sun gems, as somebody comes in with that horizontal strike, you're coming like this, boom, boom. Then when you do this, you see here, there's a rotation, rotate, right? It's not just like this. The flick is in the wrist, right? So, then I come out, boom, flick back, right? Choppy, boom. That's fine, right? Where you don't want to get choppy is when you're coming in here, right? And you kind of you step and then you move here, right? Even though I'm separating things through, at no point am I doing anything that's not got a purpose, right? Everything has a purpose. Take another one. Sarlacc sweep, right? So this one, a little different. If we're doing it in 3 of each, we do it a little bit different. We put it a little bit further in front of our body. We kind of keep it there because we know, again, our opponent is there. But let's look at the full thing and see what we can glean from it, right? First off, coming up to here, okay? Jedi guard here. This is, of course, our high guards, right? 1, boom, 2. So now you can chop that up even further. Like if you're going through here, you can go 1, 2, 3. Okay. All of these ways of chopping it up, as long as each of those pieces is smooth, is going to bring you one step closer to being able to flow the way that we want to. Okay. Because even when I'm doing something in this, what we call short energy, right? It still looks smooth. It still looks deliberate. It still flows, right? If you don't have those little flows, you won't be able to connect to the big one. Now that's true for Dulon, and it's also true for this particular exercise. So take it very slow and deliberately. When I'm demonstrating here, and let's say I'm demonstrating just this, right? And I'm going through that. Or if I'm taking both, an upward strike here, boom, boom, boom. Okay, simple footwork, just 2 types of things, right? Even that, if I'm going here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? Still good. As you get better at that, those things come together. Like I said, this is short energy versus long energy, right? A Tai Chi concept. Does that answer the question? It's pretty long-winded, but.
Yeah, that was very good. Thank you.
Okay. All righty.
Hey,
So,
We
Yes.
have another kind of technical question here that might be a good one, and I think we could expand this to all the velocities. When we practice them in class or with, partners, is there a designated attacker and a defender?
When you start out, yes. Somebody's going to attack, somebody's going to defend, at least in the first two, right? The person who starts off attacking in 3 of each, and then it switches, right? So one person's attacking, then another person's, it goes back and forth, right? So the first two, the attacker is going to be so in the nucleus, the first attacker is the one that takes the strike first, and then the parry second. Okay? In the Kessel run, the attacker is the one who's going to be walking forward first. Okay? And you just designate those before you start the exercise. Okay.
And can I just reiterate one more thing about, doing these with people and teaching them in class?
Sure.
These are cooperative exercises, guys, especially in a classroom where you don't have fencing helmets on. You are really not trying to hit the other guy. So you want to make everything you do as legible as possible. Whereas in sparring, you try to be tricky. Don't try to be tricky here.
Right. Very, very good advice. You want to communicate to your partner what you intend to do, right? So this is much more like a dance. Now, some people will say, oh, well, that's not like real fighting. No, it's not, but really nothing is. So that's the thing. Anybody who's gotten into a fight knows that. All we're doing here in training is trying to mitigate those things that we know are going to happen, right? We know that when we get into an altercation, most of what we know is going to leave our brain, right? And we're going to be left with motor learning and all of that, right? Most of the time. At least that's what we should plan on. We should not plan on, if somebody attacks, that we're going to rip our shirt open like Superman and be able to save the day. That is foolhardy. Yeah, as my teacher Gabriel was very fond of saying, the difference between bravery and stupidity is very, very small, and it is very hard to tell them apart. So there's that. All right, let's see what we got here. Should a student even spar with a partner before they have Form 1 proficient? In my opinion, no. I am from a very strict school of thought as far as martial arts goes. I was not allowed to fight or spar for 3 years of my training. We did lots of 2-person stuff, right? Exercises like toy show, like certain wrestling and all that kind of stuff. It's not like we didn't do stuff against resisting opponents, but free sparring was not on the docket until much, much later. And then it had to be 2 people who knew what they were doing. You couldn't have one person who knew what they were doing, one person who's never done it before. That's one of the reasons we started TPLAs, because it's hard to find partners, because most people don't make it that long. So there you go. All right. Well, what I will do is we will end the broadcast here and move into our Q&A for our students who join the class. Also, for all of you, well, I'll tell you that when we get over into there, so we don't confuse the issue. But thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you, everybody at home, for following along. For your support. I hope everybody is staying sane and healthy in wherever they are and whatever they're doing. Please be careful. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. Patience, practice, perseverance. Happy sabering.